I'd like to call our board meeting to order. Do we have any comments from the public regarding items on the closed session agenda? Seeing no one? Apparently we do not, so we are going to recess to closed session. Good morning or good afternoon or whatever it is. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to open session for our board meeting. Thank you all for coming. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Our little flag is right over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. To approve of the agenda, can I have a motion? So moved. And a second? Sir. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Great. Input from the public regarding items not on open session agenda. We have Sharon Martinelli. Did I say your name correctly?
Yes.
Oh.
We've got memories. I was the first graduate in class here in 68. Like this. My relatives are there. Well, so I'm
Karen, would you just hit the microphone button down there?
Yes.
Do you see the green button? Or just, is it green now?
There. Okay, I'm Sharon Martinelli and my family has lived in Forestville for 5 generations. I'm here this evening to voice my concern for the proposed industrial plant, asphalt industrial plant, excuse me, I'm not a public speaker, which will dramatically change the character and health of Forestville and the surrounding West County communities. An asphalt plant should be located in an industrial area such as the Meacham Dump along Highway 101, which is zoned industrial, not in a residential area, or in a designated scenic corridor, which the quarry actually falls into. This designated corridor was awarded in 1988 by the Transportation Department. Forestville School and this high school, as well as all businesses, are located within 1 mile of this proposed asphalt plant. There are numerous environmental concerns such as fire risk, air quality, deforestation, noise, increased gravel trucks, threat to Green Valley Creek habitat, and proposed long-term cumulative effects of exposure from dust and carcinogenic compounds. Drive by the quarry and observe the devastation of the mountain and the forest. It's looking right now like site prep, even though the environmental impact report won't be complete until sometime in the fall. The quarry is already highly profitable and providing jobs. We've tolerated their expansion over the years with the increased traffic, gravel truck traffic, the dust and noise from explosions. There have been 2 gravel truck spills on Maribel Road in Forestville, which could have been injured pedestrians. One can only imagine if the trucks were carrying hot asphalt. Canyon Quarry owners maintain that the plant is a state-of-the-art technology. However, research shows that asphalt plant fires are not rare and are often catastrophic. If you look up recent asphalt fires on your phone, you will immediately see Maryland and Oklahoma spills that occurred in just the last few weeks. The Husky asphalt fire, which was 2 years ago, affected a 10-mile radius with over 2,000 residents evacuated. Injuries included concussions, fractures, and respiratory issues, as 39,000 pounds of hydrocarbon was released into the atmosphere. There was $550 million in property damage. Do your own research. Is it safe to live near an asphalt plant? And read about how hazardous it is to your health. We all remember that we were evacuated twice in recent years. People living on Jovanity Road, which is right across from the quarry, drive on a narrow, 1-lane rural road. If a fire erupted from the asphalt plant, they would be trapped. This is not the first fight from Canyon Rock. My mother, Eve Martinelli, wrote to permit Sonoma 20 years ago, protesting the quarry expansion and the farm to Green Valley Creek. In 2010, Forestville
your
residents formed a nonprofit Citizens for Sensible Growth and won a lawsuit against Canyon Rock Quarry.
Sharon,
Mitigations of the,
that's your time.
oh, okay. Anybody want to donate time to me? 1 minute?
I donate time.
That's,
Like, I'll be quiet if you let her speak.
Go ahead.
I just have one sentence.
Oh, okay.
Mitigation fees of $16,000 a year was awarded to Forestville Chamber of Commerce for town improvements. So we have had this fight before. There's been a lawsuit before. We don't want it in our town. Put it somewhere else in an industrial zone.
Thank you very much for your statement. Mary Frick.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I want to thank the volunteers on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. What you do is so important. And I also want to ask you, as you consider where your focus needs to be, to keep our politically conservative youth in mind. I belong to a Sonoma County group of adults that includes liberals and conservatives. And the conservatives tell us that in Sonoma County, they often feel excluded, dismissed, disrespected, and ignored. I hope all of our teenagers can feel included, appreciated, respected, and heard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we are on to the consent calendar. Can I have a motion?
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
I have a second.
I'll second.
All those approve?
I have a comment.
Oh, go ahead, Debbie.
I have some, edits to the March 13th minutes. Just 3 things that I noticed. Under board reports on page 3, I just want to make sure that it's noted here. I remarked that I wanted to make a nomination for the Becky Hopper Award, and I just like the record to show that I nominated Leah Woody for the Becky Hopper Award, based on the public comment from the prior meeting earlier in March. And then on page 5, I just, and Chris has done some of this follow-up with me, but during the second interim report, I had some questions for Andrew, and I asked for some more detailed information about the 5,000 codes expenses, services and other operating expenses. And he offered to meet with me, which was great. I sent a follow-up email during the meeting, but subsequently, Chris sent me an overview report that didn't actually include all of the information that I was looking for, and now he's offered to follow up with that. But that was, I just wanted to make sure that it's more noted in the report that I asked for that extra information and that it's forthcoming. And then in the transportation and annual update on the next page, I just wanted to make sure that the record showed that Chad, our speaker who came to present on this, remarked that it was particularly difficult to hire drivers for Route 203, and that they're looking to try to come up with ways to keep that route staffed. So if you could just add those 3 things to the minutes.
Are we ready to vote?
It's like Karen, you have a comment or a question?
No, I will, just.
Okay.
So is
We'll discuss.
the motion to include with the revised minutes?
So you want to adjust?
I'd be happy to amend my motion to include the revised comments.
this is just my friendly reminder to use your microphones, please.
The only question I have, Debbie, the second item you brought up about the information that you
Is that too
wanted.
complicated? Do you want me to make it a shorter?
No,
statement?
what I wanted to say was, you asked those questions, but later. it
Right,
was-
so that part doesn't
So
have
they
to, I just
probably
wanted to
should
give
be
the
part of
context.
the note.
So the part that I want the minutes to reflect is that, Andrew, and Chris are going to be sharing that additional information with us.
But that request came later, Debbie.
It came during the
You
meeting.
talked about the margins being small, and we discussed and explained, the report for second interim. You then followed up and asked for vaguely specific information, so we provided that, and then there was an additional follow-up, which we're still trying to make sense of, and my plan was to follow up with you based on your most recent response. So,
So I went back actually and I watched the video so that when I went in order to be clear about this here. And during the presentation, I asked some questions. I hadn't asked for them ahead of time, so I knew Andrew didn't have that. And he said that he didn't have that, but he welcomed having a meeting to go over that. I wrote to him during the meeting, during the board meeting, I sent him a follow-up email.
so what is it that you feel was left out? What specific
Yeah,
statement?
that's what it's.
Specific statement.
I requested more detailed information about the 5,000s.
So we can simply state.
Yeah,
Okay. Go ahead.
you can say
Dee.
that.
As I stated, I'm more than happy to amend my motion to include her comments.
Yeah, do you want to second that?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Can I make a comment, please? Debbie, I would like to request that in the future, if you have corrections, do Karen a favor and let her know ahead of time.
Yeah, that would be much appreciated.
That would be better.
It's
Yeah.
really nice
That's
and courteous
confusing,
to
I
do
think.
that.
Well, yeah, sure, if there's a typo, but I mean, I wanted you all to, she can't change it without you all knowing about it.
Just a
Yes,
heads
she-
up.
yes, she can.
A heads up would be helpful, Debbie, in the same fashion that we ask that if there's any questions, give us ample time to have the answers and not feel put on the spot. It's just courteous.
Okay, action on items heard in closed session. Sean,
Yeah, I do have a statement to read. Kate Fernandez moved to deny the request from Kate Otzinger for a 0.4 FTE leave of absence for the 2024-2025 school year. Trustee Ayo seconded the motion. All trustees voted yes. 5 yes, 0 no, 0 absent. Thank you.
thank you. And reports. It looks like we have a new student board representative.
Hello, everyone. Hi, guys. I'm Alina Peterson.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm your student board rep for the 2024-2025 school year, but,
Yay.
yeah, hi. You guys are gonna get to know me a lot more. That's good. Hi, guys. And I'm standing in for parents today.
What's your name again?
Alina Peterson.
Welcome.
Thank you. I have Karen's report.
Fantastic.
You guys- Oh, it is?
Yes, it's your time.
Thank
Your
you.
time.
Okay. Last Saturday, April 6th, the Annalee Best Buddies Club helped to host a prom for special needs students. Cassidy Avila, the president of Annalee Club, worked for months to make sure that the event would run smoothly and that there would be enough money raised to pay for the event. Our club worked closely with a variety of other schools to make the event happen and spread the word. Ultimately, over $15,000 were raised to hold the prom at the Ag Center in Santa Rosa from 5 to 8 p.m. with 6 schools represented and hundreds of attendants. Annalee Prom is coming up fast. It will be held at Sonoma Raceway on April 20th with the grand parade. We've already been selling tickets for a few weeks and have well over 300 tickets sold already, so it's sure to be a great event. Leading up to prom, we will be holding a prom spirit week and the following schedule. Monday, get rich or tie-dye trying. Tuesday is Twin Tuesday. Wednesday is class colors. Thursday is salad dressing. All right. Friday is checkers, black and white. And on Wednesday, we will be holding our juniors versus seniors Power Puff flag football game starting at 7 p.m. And our prom rally will be during school on Friday. The weeks following prom are sure to be stressful for many of our students with AP tests happening in early May and then finals coming, of course. Other things to look forward to in the upcoming months from the leadership class will include Senior Day Away, which will be happening at Great America on May 29th. We will begin selling tickets to seniors the week following prom. Additionally, our sophomore class is planning a final movie night on May 24th. I didn't know that. That's exciting. There will be plenty of excitement in the few months leading up to the end of school, and I can't wait. That's Karis, isn't it?
Thank you. Great job for your first time. That was awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
You're gonna be fantastic.
Association reports, teachers? No? Okay. CFEA? Great.
You hear me?
We hear you good.
So my name is Paul Poso, CSCA Chapter President 72. We are proud of the current tentative agreement as it brings our lowest wage to $20 an hour, which is a big deal for our lowest paid members. We were able to overhaul our collective bargaining agreement and bring it up to date on current law and best practices. We urge the board to adopt the tentative agreement and look forward to a ratification vote this Friday. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for being here.
Board reports. Debbie?
So we have an item on the agenda at the end where we talk about upcoming meetings. I wanted to just make some comments about the upcoming special meeting that we're having. Would you prefer, Julie, that we have that conversation in the upcoming meetings item?
Yes.
Okay, so just don't forget about me when we come to that. And then I wanted to, I know that Julie and Chris are gonna be meeting with Christy White next week on the unification study. And I just wanted to let you know, I'll be meeting with her as well under my role with my day job. She had some interest in some of the projects that we're working on. And so I just wanted to let you know about that.
Well, I just have a question. Will you be representing the board in
No.
any way during that?
No, I will not.
Okay.
It's in my day job, we've just completed a year-long governance study that addresses things along the same line as the unification study. So it addresses community identity and governance issues. So that was a year-long consultant run report, and so she wants to talk about that.
Could you just really be careful about a conflict of interest there?
Absolutely.
Roles, please.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I wanted to mention again, I mentioned this briefly at our last meeting. I'd like to get some information about language access at our meetings. Prior to our last meeting, I had some monolingual parents reach out who do not speak English. They're Spanish speakers, and they wanted to know how to attend the meeting. I haven't been able to find any information on interpretation at our meeting. So if we could either, someone could get that information to me, or if we could agendize it to have a conversation about it, I would like to do that. And then just some events that are coming up. You might have seen some of the signs in the neighborhood here on Saturday, either outside in the circle or indoors if there's rain. It's gonna be the second annual Russian River Rotary Fix-It Fair. And there are going to be a number of volunteers fixing things, so you don't have to throw them away or buy new things. And then also a bunch of community groups, including the Annalee Eco Club students will be there tabling. And Recology, Zero Waste Sonoma, just a lot of really neat, it'll be a neat event. I went to it last year. I'll probably go again this year. And so there's some flyers at the entrance if anybody wants to grab one. On May 3rd, I'll be attending as a chaperone. I'll be going to the We the Future Social Justice Conference with a group of Annalee students. That'll be at the SRJC in Petaluma. And I don't know if they still need more volunteers to chaperone, but I'll be riding the bus that day. And then, on May 7th, and hopefully moving forward, Alina, next year also, prior to board meetings, I've had requests from students to sit down and actually kind of decipher them, give feedback. They can't always come to meetings, so I have agreed, and I would welcome absolutely our student rep. I reached out to Karis, and I had reached out through Chris to all of you to try to do that this month, and I didn't hear back from anybody, and then it just didn't work out for yesterday. But the Tuesday before the board meeting is, unless the bell schedule changes next year, seems to be a time that they're very interested in during tutorial and then again during lunch. So I welcome another trustee to join me for that. We'll just go through the agenda, and if anyone has questions or feedback, that I would very much welcome someone joining me on that. And then the students were also asking when their new board rep will be selected, so that question was answered magically. That is my report. Thank you.
Jeannie. Yes, hi, thank you. So I had the great honor of being a judge on Friday for the Ag Field Day here, held here at Alino campus for a regional, was a regional Ag Field Day. When I say regional, it included students from Half Moon Bay, from Eureka or Arcata, some students from Annalee, from Sacramento. I mean, there was a lot of kids and from a lot of different areas. A lot of people think region, you think like, Sonoma, Marin County maybe, but we're talking really big area. And I got to judge two different speaking contests. One was the FFA Creed, which I had heard before, but geez, I had never heard anybody have it memorized, which was amazing. And then we also listened to students do a prepared speech. The kids did a marvelous job. I was really impressed and was honored to be asked to help with the judging. There were quite a number of our teachers that were also judging, which was really nice to have them do. And then prior to that, I guess it had started much earlier in the day, but our students were out here back behind the FFA Ag greenhouse in the parking lot back there. They were doing a welding competition, and we had two groups here from Annalee, and they were given all the materials they needed to make a barbecue. And they had to come up with a design themselves and then weld it all together and put it all together. And they had so many hours to do it. And sorry, I don't know how long that was, but when I got here, it was towards the tail end, but it was really interesting to watch them trying to figure out how to get it all finished and put together in their amount of time limit. Our Annalee kids got second and fourth place. And I think there were, I'm not mistaken, I think there were 6 or 8 teams. There was a lot of teams. So that was really interesting to watch them working on that and to do some welding and what have you. So I was really impressed to see that. So I was really excited to be able to help be a part of that. And so that's my report.
Great. Sean?
No report today.
Louis?
I just want to make a couple reflections on from the DEI committee. The last meeting, we had a really interesting discussion here about the question of flying the pride flag on the school campus, and the board asked the DEI committee to consider that and come back with a recommendation about policy. And in the last DEI meeting, it was discussed, and then at a certain point, we just kind of went around the room and everyone spoke their mind. And it was some of the most thoughtful, heart open kind of discussion we've had in a long time. This was really, really useful and deep and thoughtful, and trying to find the policy that really does serve everyone. And Mary, in response to what you're saying, yes, it includes not just the usual issues of diversity, which are extremely important, but also conservative and liberal and rural and town, and all of those things are part of it. So DI committee's meeting again this Friday, may or may not get to the end of a recommendation, but I just want people to know that it's moving along in a very respectful way. So we're making progress.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. Thank you. I don't have a report tonight, so we're moving on to the superintendent report.
Thank you. I want to start by congratulating and acknowledging Jolene Johnson for winning the first ever Sonoma County Arts Educator of the Year. I had a chance Friday to stop into some classrooms, and Jolene's classroom was one of them. Had a chance just to talk to her students for a few minutes and acknowledge what a great teacher, choreographer, and leader that they have for their program. Leslie also welcomed me into her classroom because as I was walking by, I heard some music. And it was a cool Kahoot game going in terms of response to some math concepts, and I declined participation because I don't know if I could have competed. But it was great. And I stopped by and visited a few other teachers. So now that we've gotten through negotiations with our two labor partners, and things are hopefully starting to slow down a little bit, it'll give me a little more time to be present on our campuses. So acknowledging some other outstanding teachers, the Rotary Club has selected two of our teachers as their Teachers of the Year with the lunch on Friday to acknowledge the recipients. The first is Alma Diaz, first-year Spanish teacher and alumnus of the district. And she is Annalee, new Teacher of the Year at Annalee. And then we'd like to honor and acknowledge Lori Horner, who is a veteran of Laguna High School for 33 years as a social science teacher. Lori was acknowledged as Laguna Innovative Teacher of the Year. And what a great accomplishment for Lori, and a way to send her off on a positive note as she will be retiring at the end of this year. I'd like to welcome Alina Peterson to be our next student board rep. But at the same time, I know Karis isn't here, but I got permission from her mom and mainly her to congratulate Karis as she has chosen to accept admission into UC Berkeley, and she'll be heading to Cal next year. Go Bears. As Debbie indicated in her report, Julie and I will be meeting with Christy White on the 17th to learn more about the next steps in the non-action feasibility study regarding unification, and specifically option 2 of the previous preliminary study, which you should all be aware of. Our LCAP meetings are going really well. Again, it's a really robust, in-depth process that exceeds the expectations, but we felt that was necessary to collaborate and, spend the time with our ed partners as we're building out our strategic plan for the year. And the March meeting covered youth truth data. That's all I have to report for today.
Thank you very much. And we are moving to facilities, maintenance, and technology. Consideration of approval of public art request from Ariana Stur, art teacher at Annalee High School.
Before you take a motion, could you potentially consider tabling this until the teacher shows up? I told her 6:45, but we're plowing through the agenda.
Do we?
Yeah, we can wait.
Yeah, I guess we can. Do we,
Sorry to. Sometimes it takes us an hour, sometimes it takes us 35 minutes.
We just move it.
Yeah, we can just switch it around.
I apologize.
That's fine.
Okay,
I think we have to make a motion to do that.
okay, I'll move that whenever. All right. So we're on to number 2, consideration of approval of contract with Emergent Technology Services for the purchase of computers and associated warranties and services pursuant to Public Contract Code Section 20118. I need a motion.
I move that we approve the contract with Emergent Technology Services for the purchase of new computers in the amount of $242,020.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. You're on.
Pretty routine item that we bring to you every year. This is procurement of 500 Chromebooks for our freshman incoming class, as well as some ancillary Chromebooks just to get us through any issues that may arise with teenager youth. Happy to answer any questions. This is, we are piggybacking off of our own item from several years ago that you guys approved a couple of different times.
Can I just add that with over 420 enrollments already, one of the reasons we wanted to purchase 500 was to be prepared for more enrollments, as we're doing some really good things and people are coming from all over the county.
Any questions from the board? The community? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consideration of approval of renewal of joint use agreement with Sonoma County Library for use of a portion of the Laguna High School library building. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second.
There you go.
Okay,
This is a successor agreement. We have been housing the Sonoma County Library in a classroom just adjacent to us over here for a number of years. Their 5-year joint use agreement and at the end of June. And we are just doing things in advance this year as we had it on our timetable to renew their lease. They are also renewing it tonight with their board. So we are hoping to be able to enter into another 5-year agreement. Happy to answer questions.
any questions? Questions from the committee? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consideration of approval of award of contract with Artworks LLC for the network wiring project at Annalee High School and the district offices. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right.
This is just as written. It's that time of year where we go out for E-rate projects. E-rate, if you're unfamiliar with it, is that bill that you, or that tiny little charge that you see on your cell phone bill. You still have a landline, your DSL, AT&T, whatever, all the service charges. And it amounts to a pot of money that we're able to go after on an annual basis. So we did this year with some wiring infrastructure needs in mind, specifically at the Annalee High School campus. And our E-rate consultant puts it out to bid because there's a different process that happens through. Artworks was the only responder to that. So we're asking you to award their contract tonight in advance of the state funding it. But that we would delay the start of construction or the start of the wiring project until which time we are funded, which typically happens over summer in the month of July when we don't have a board meeting. So this is me thinking ahead.
Any questions? Go
I have
ahead.
questions. So Jenny, in reading that item, it seems like some of the wiring is for vape sensors in bathrooms. So
Correct.
just give us a 1 minute, like how that's gonna help that situation and.
Well, we have vape sensors in every restroom except for the ones in the main building. And the reason we don't have them in the main building is because if you're not familiar with that building, it's 18-inch thick concrete masonry construction. And so we'll actually be dropping internet access points in those locations so we can actually wire up the vape devices we already own.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Questions from the community? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Consideration of approval of a consultant contract with Bruce Mansell for Inspector of Record Services for Measure A Bond Project, Annalee Main Building HVAC. Can I have a motion?
I so move.
And second?
Second.
Okay. Who's taking this one?
That's me.
Shocking.
We're required to hire an inspector of record. That inspector of record reports directly to the Division of State Architect with the status of our project for any project that's required to go through the Division of State Architect. We're in the process of getting our, this project, will come to you hopefully at the special board meeting or the next board meeting for award of that project. So we're just trying to get in advance to get all our inspectors and special testing lined up for this project so that we can complete it over summer. And we did issue an RFP. We only had one IOR respond. It's a pretty brutal market out there right now. We did send it out to 6 different IOR, only one response. So happy to answer questions.
Questions from the board? Yes.
Am I allowed to ask questions?
Of course you can.
Yeah, about the, like, of that, I've heard that the library should definitely be looked at for like safety concerns.
What, say it again?
The library, Annie, right? Or not?
Mhm.
I've heard that the library may have like some, health concerns due to either like mold or things like that.
I can speak to that if the board would allow me to. It's not necessarily related to this item, but I'm happy to address it.
Sure. Yeah.
I might further be able to give you information on what exactly the inspector of record is, and if you'd like that as well, you might be confusing it. This is a project where we have to hire an inspector specific to a project that we have planned, which is we're adding air conditioning to the main
Oh,
building.
excuse me, sorry.
But I can address that air quality issue that has been presented to us
Okay.
multiple times, and we have done multiple reports with nothing coming back for us to pursue any further.
Excuse me, thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Air conditioning, yippee. Yay, fine, vote for that. Thank you. Are we ready for the art?
Yes.
All right, so we already made a motion and moved, right?
No, we didn't.
No.
Oh, I thought we did. Okay. Consideration of approval of public art requests from Ariana Stir, art teacher at Annalee High School. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And Sean, a second?
I'll second.
All right.
Well, tonight we have our teacher, Ariana, here. Ariana, if you want to go to the podium over there. I thought it would be nice for her to present this item. She submitted all the appropriate forms and documentation. I've talked to Mr. Wade, or we've exchanged some emails. He fully supports this. I support this. They understand that there might be some areas that I told them could be modernized in the future, and she's assured me that they're movable. I wanted her just to be cognizant of the fact that, hey, we've got other plans on campus that are happening, so just beware, which is why we kind of go through this whole public art request process. So I'm pleased to present Ariana, and who will walk you through this board item.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ari. I teach art and ceramics at Annalee, and I also went there. The garden was like my favorite place in high school. We spent all of our time working in there and building, and everything was hands-on, and that's like the one thing that I remember from high school so clearly. And we did a project where I had students draw their dream high school. And I'm not a numbers person, so I made sure somebody could check this for me. But 89% of my students drew a garden.
And we have one, but it's not being used, we're not in it, they don't really know it exists, it's like very overgrown. So they've been volunteering community service hours to help me clean it up. And then for my Art One classes, I would love for them to build living furniture. So part of our curriculum is that they do beautiful images. They do a sculpture unit, and in this unit, they design, they have to put together a proposal, they present it to me and the other art teachers, so they practice those skills, they learn about public art and how to submit things and how to work within boundaries and like what it's really like to work with a team of people that are not artists. And so they get into teams and everybody in their team has a different role, and they make eco furniture. And the idea is that they learn cardboard construction, so you can see that picture over there. They learn how to build the form, they're thinking about form and function sculpture, and then they use dirt and grass seeds to make them function, so they become these like living seeds. And so the idea is that the kids contribute to our garden space, but also get to make their own, it's pretty cool, they've been drawing, and they've been building the structure, so they can be movable, they don't have to build in the garden if it's not approved, but it's awesome to see them work together. We just have been doing it today. But the idea is that they end up making a living classroom. So they can sit outside there, they can read, we can sketch, they can have group circles, just another community space that they've built, and they feel like they've contributed to their campus. Because I think one of the things I notice is I feel that there isn't a ton of ownership over our campus. A lot of our students aren't from Sebastopol. And so being at this campus it doesn't feel like they're home completely. And so by building something and having something that they can walk by and be like, oh, I built this, or I contributed to the space. Like, I think the idea is to help them have ownership at our campus, to build something functional and like really different, and to build something that's, temporary, because it can, if it rains and they didn't build it correct, it'll just go right back into the ground. So I think they're learning about temporary art, they're learning about living sculptures, it's totally biodegradable, just cardboard and dirt. They have to work together, it's hands-on. It's like all of these things that they can take outside of the art classroom into their own lives too as they get older. So I'd love for them to build living sculptures in our garden. Today we whacked the whole space, so it's nice and beautiful and it's ready for people to be in it. But I would love for there to be seating for us. So yeah, that would be our project. The dirt, we have, I've had a parent donated money for the dirt, I have seeds, we have tools, all of the cardboard has been donated, so it doesn't cost us anything. And it's all, it's just a project for them to work together and really be a part of our campus.
This is like so totally cool.
I love it.
I'm an artist, and at the beginning of the year, I showed them my project, and they're all like eco furniture, so it's not brand new to me. So for them, it's like, oh my God, I can't believe this exists, but I have built them before, so it's not like a totally brand new project.
Well, it's really super cool.
Thank you.
Very awesome concept.
Yeah.
I know when she sent it to me, I said, oh, what a great unit. They're doing a public art unit. We have a public art policy, so.
We went over it, we talked about, so they know, my art practice is all public art, so I talked to them about it a lot, and I showed them like, this is what, this company gave me as my guidelines, or these are the rules we had to follow. And so for our project, we looked at that public art form that you showed us, and they had to think about like, does it apply? Would it be applicable? Which was really awesome.
Really neat.
Very neat.
Thank you.
Very cool idea.
Any questions from the board? From our public? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great, congratulations, and can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
You're good to go.
Pretty good. All right, we are on consideration of approval of a consultant contract with Crawford and Associates for construction materials, engineering, and testing services for Measure A bond project AA27 Annalee main building HVAC or air conditioning.
Stuff, it's all the
All more.
It's all
air
the sexy
conditioning
stuff that goes alongside of it,
I
so.
love it.
We're required to have special testing because we're doing some roof penetrations. We also have some fencing and,
Can you wait just a second, because I haven't got numbers.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm ahead of it too today.
That's all right. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, ready, set, go.
Just where I left off, this is following suit with the last item. We're required per DSA to have a special testing and inspection service to inspect portions of the project. We issued an RFP, we only had one respondent. This is the respondent. We are looking for you to approve this contract tonight so we can issue that accordingly. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions or concerns from the board?
I just wanted to ask Jenny, have you ever had a contract that you put out that you never got anybody to bid on? In your,
Yes.
you have?
Yes, not typically consultant contracts. We typically have somebody in mind or that we're working with or that we know is available. But we have this district has bid out projects where no one responded and we had to go to a negotiated contract, which is legal, when no one responds. Right now, the whole market is really hungry,
Okay.
so.
I just was curious, but thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Community? All those in favor? Aye. Measure A bond and budget project updates. Who is going to do that one?
Me still.
Okay.
So I just wanted to update you guys on, first I'm gonna update you on the projects, and then I'm gonna go over the budget a little bit with you. As of right now, project AA 27, which is the Annalee High School main building HVAC, we've started the negotiation process with the guaranteed maximum price. You awarded the lease back contract to Wright Contracting. We're hoping to bring that item to you at the next board meeting for you to award it. This project is viable for this summer, so we're looking forward to completing that. The small gym, HVAC and roofing, the cafeteria, HVAC and roofing, the wood shop building, or otherwise known as industrial arts, roofing and HVAC plus windows, the main building, or the main gym roofing and HVAC, and the east wing roofing and HVAC are still in DSA. We are hopeful that we'll be out of DSA by the end of next week. DSA has a lot of new staffing changeovers, so we've just been experiencing a lot of new plan checkers, doing a very thorough review, or in some cases, too thorough of a review. We are still in the midst of determining the next steps with the door and security locks. That is something that we will be working on hopefully over summer as projects slow down. AA 36, which is the new CTE classroom building project, we are at 30% completion with construction documents. We just got back our design development estimate. It came in $150,000 less than our budget estimate of 22.8 million. We expect that that will change by the time we actually go to bid. But it was kind of nice to see that come in a little bit low. We're still on track for this to come to the board in June, the first meeting in June. We'll present you with the final construction document plans. And typically the board approves us submitting those plans to DSA, which is really exciting, and that'll start our clock. This project is on track for construction starting spring break-ish, February, March of next school year. We just revived the temporary portables or temporary housing portable project. We'll hope to be bringing something to the board to review in the next couple of board meetings so that we will have a place where displaced teachers will go for the upcoming new construction project and potentially future modernizations. Trying to maximize what we can. The Forestville building F HVAC and roofing is still in design. Forestville gym HVAC boilers. We are in receipt of the proposal from the mechanical engineer and hope to bring something to you at the next board meeting. The Sunset and Tap pedestrian enhancement project, we still haven't heard anything from the city as to the status of that. Last time we checked with them, it was in plan review, so I'll make sure to follow up in the next few weeks. Annalee, stadium repairs, or we turn that into kind of a modernization project. We're still in design with projects AA43, which is the Annalee Stadium modernization, the Annalee Main Gym modernization, the Annalee East Wing modernization, which includes L1 and L2, and Annalee Cafeteria Kitchen modernization. We've been meeting with all of the design teams. Most teams have had at least 2 meetings. Some teams have completed their meetings. We just met with East Wing Science Team last week and finalized their schematic design with them. And it really turned out beautiful. I can't wait to present those to you. We're planning on presenting all 4 of these projects at the second board meeting in June. And then we just added the E-rate project. That's new. We're hoping to do that over summer. And the Laguna signage, we're working on that. We've made some progress with connecting with the designer as well as the builder and are finalizing some of those details. And we believe that's a viable summer project. And now I'm going to share my screen and go over the budget with you. What was that?
Thank you, guys.
Now, how do I get out of it?
Oh, that's more interesting anyway.
Probably than the budget. I just wanted to give you guys an update on where we were at with the budget as of right now. And sorry if these numbers are so little. In order to see them on my screen, they have to be a little.
Yes, we have it.
Oh, great. For the folks at home, they can see it then. So as you know, we passed a $91 million bond. We've sold a total of 3 series of those bonds. We have a future bond sale that's estimated at 23 million and some change. At the beginning of the school year, we had approximately 46 million and some change available at the county treasury. To date, we have 24 million and some change allocated for projects and or encumbered. And we have 22 million and some change of unallocated funds, which are part of the future bonds. So what I wanted to show you here is specifically with our project AA27, the main building HVAC, our preliminary costs have come in about $600,000 over what our original budget is. So I've adjusted the budget to reflect that. We're just seeing an increase in goods and services, not untypical. That's not a word, but it was just the word that came out of my mouth. So for projects like this, to see escalation, we did not adjust the budget from the time that we budgeted it until the time it went out to bid. So I'm not surprised to see that increase. We have not, you can see this big yellow nothing right here. We have not fully budgeted the new CTE project because we don't have enough cash in the treasury. If you watch me do add the number in here, oops, that's way too much. 1 less 0. You can see that we go to a negative funds available. That's funds available in the treasury, and that we go to a $13,000 or $13 million estimated remaining bond funds. So I just wanted to let everyone know that's why there isn't any funding there right now. We did add back in $3 million for temporary housing. And what I wanted to draw your attention to also was I don't have any hard construction budgets for any of the projects that were currently in design. When we come back to you at the second meeting in June, we will have schematic estimates for all 4 of those projects. But here's where we're estimating them right now. 4.2 million for the stadium modernization, 12.3 million for the main gym modernization, 8.3 million for the east main modernization plus L1 and L2, and 5 million for the Annalee cafeteria and kitchen modernization for a total of 29 million. If we use that 13 million that's currently unallocated, if our budgets come in exactly where they're at right now, we won't have enough to do all of these projects. I also took the liberty of just letting you guys know that we have lots of future projects that we don't have any funding for. And I just wanted to kind of put that on my own radar so I can have it constantly in the background. This was more just an exercise to show you that we always have a need for facility money and funds. And we, although it feels like have $47 million available to us right now, in the next 2 years, we will spend a large chunk of that. Happy to answer any questions or provide more detail. I know I just went over that at a very high level.
Do we have any kind of plan in place of what we're gonna do for funding?
Call.
Horrible.
Well, I think, you know, the obvious answer would be to consider another bond measure. So, you know, what we would need to do, should the board, you know, be interested in hearing more about this, would be to have Greg Isom come at the next board meeting and present what that would look like. And the subsequent next steps, should the board be interested in launching a bond campaign. I mean, you know, we've looked really closely at the priorities that would set our district up for the next 50 to 100 years, both at this campus and the Annalee campus. And, you know, there are a lot of glaring needs for possible future projects, but I think, you know, just looking at some of the projects that we previously planned to try to squeeze out every last dollar from this current bond, we're not going to have enough to do what we've been discussing and what's needed on the campus. So.
Could you go in a little more depth of what he would tell us?
Maybe explain who he is. too,
Yeah,
because
who he
not
is and
everybody knows
what
who
he does and what.
Sorry, so, thank you. Well, Greg Isom is, you know, known as the bond guru. He's a bond consultant, and what's the name of his organization? Isom Associates, you know, it's that simple. He also has done our parcel tax. So Greg led the previous bond campaign, and he works closely with most districts in the county choose to use Isom Associates should they go out for a bond. What Greg would do would be to come and present to the board and describe the next steps in terms of launching a campaign and ensuring that all of the public input and the subsequent steps would be aligned and appropriate. That wouldn't commit the district to anything. It would be an opportunity for you all to learn a little bit more, for Greg as the expert to speak to this and what this could look like. And then the board could give some direction in terms of whether or not we want to start a campaign, put that hold, and think about the maybe other options. I think Jenny mentioned a car wash.
And the future projects, I just want to let you guys know, I threw a dart at a wall based on some square footage and some general stuff. I mean, these are likely much bigger figures as projects develop. The projects that we're working on that we're in design right now, I'm really proud of the teams that we've put together. We've put a lot of thought and effort and energy into being very considerate of how we're designing classrooms and how we're designing spaces and how we're trying to future-proof some of our facilities for increased enrollment or changes in program and how things function. So, you know, when you guys gave us permission back in December to move forward with these 4 projects, we did it with I was going forward in mind that we would design them to ultimately what we want them to look like, and that we would very well have to make some difficult decisions about value engineering. And that's, you know, if you're not familiar with value engineering, it's when we reduce the scope to the budget that we can afford. And it's always a very, very difficult process, especially when you have 4 really important and equally, I don't want to say equally important projects. And so that will be a difficult conversation for all of us, at the end of June, and I've gone to Chris a couple different times and gone, you know, where do we go from here? Because those future projects are, some of them are just, you know, basic necessities that start to come up as we look and evaluate, the age of our facility and their existing condition, and maintaining and preserving, the district's investment in all district properties, which is really important to focus on. So, thank you for listening to my presentation tonight.
Any questions or comments from the board?
So do you need some direction from us, Chris, whether or not you think we should ask Greg Isom to come and visit with us?
Yeah, if there's general interest from the board, you know, I think out of respect for, you know, your positions and wanting to ensure that you know, understand where we are in terms of the existing bond and where the monies are gonna be encumbered here soon. We could add that to the May 8th agenda and have Greg come in and do a presentation with possible action in terms of whether or not the board would like to launch a bond campaign. And he would provide you with all the answers to any questions that you may have. I mean, again, he is the expert in that field. So I'd be happy to align that for the next agenda, the next board meeting.
I know one of my concerns is that, and it's been talked about so often from our teachers, well, and from the community as a whole, is the modernization of the main building at the Hanley campus. And we keep telling people, yes, that's coming, but we don't have $25 million to spend on it. And we know it needs to be done. We know we need to do something about the bathroom issue. It's a huge problem. We constantly hear about it. And that would include that with that project. And so for me, I think that that's something we should propose to listen to what Greg has to say and, you know, consider whether or not we think we want to pursue a bond. The other issue is the old auto shop issue that we weren't able to take advantage of when we were, as we had hoped, with this last modernization of the CTE buildings. And we know now it's going to require put some money behind it for the CEQA issue. Because I know it sounds so strange for a building that's condemned that it's considered a historic building, but
Potentially eligible to be designated as historic. I've learned that they rolled right off the tongue.
Anyway, it's just very odd.
And those are some of the future projects, right, that we're discussing.
Yes,
And I completely agree, but even, you know, the exploration of retrofitting and modernizing the main gym, we've learned that there are some complications to that because of the triangular grade, and, you know, Jenny could speak to that a little bit more in depth, but we won't be able to do that. So with the existing bond monies, we're gonna have to look at what projects can't get done in light of what Jenny just presented. So, you know, to think about the full picture of our facilities again here and at the Hanley campus, we're going to need more money at some point.
I think that's a good point too, though, is to get real specific of what we will be able to do and what we won't, you know.
Well, that's right. We talked about that. We really need to put in an elevator at the gym. And that's almost impossible with the way it's currently configured.
We are certainly working through some of the complexities of that particular facility to just make it accessible, let alone expand it. We'll be kind of presenting 2 items to that effect in June of what it would look like for a relatively basic modernization and a small expansion that would not necessarily be ideal or fit the programmatic needs, but it would work, versus a full tear down and start over. There's still a process that we have to go through It's called a DCR review. It's a design criteria review. It's a new process with DSA that they make us go through to kind of do a review of the building to see if it's worth us modernizing it or if we should tear it down. That building and the east wing would be eligible for us to go through that based on the level of modernization that we would be doing. And right now, we've been doing some really great planning with the athletic directors and the PE department on what the facilities would look like, but we're certainly making do versus looking at what we could do with a state-of-the-art facility. And how do you incorporate more classrooms? Because what I hear from our teachers is we need more classroom spaces. I hear that from administration. You know, I've heard very clearly from the students, the bathrooms are an issue. We've done a great job through the design process for all 4 of the projects on designing additional bathroom facilities and increasing student bathrooms as well as gender neutral bathrooms where possible. So I think you'll be pleased when we come back in June with the progress that we've made on the schematic design for these 4 projects. And you'll find it very difficult to see where we can value engineer because it's very thoughtful. I'm just very excited about it. So I can't wait to share with you guys in June where we're at, and hopefully in between there, figure out how we do, or if we do, go after and leverage more money, so.
Debbie, did you have something?
Yeah, I was to go back to just understanding what Greg Isom would be presenting. We would need to talk with him about a scope. And then he would go out and do some polling, and then he would come back. So he wouldn't come to us at this May 8th meeting and say, this is what I recommend, because he doesn't know yet. He would be asking us some scoping questions.
Correct.
That would inform his polling.
You got it.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify that.
Yeah. So it doesn't tie us to anything. It would be the first step in terms of pursuing a potential bond. So
And
present again, go out and because we have to do the polling and take all of the public inputs. You know, he would bring us back more information regarding maybe eligibility for bond dollars and some more details. So you know, again, that's what I would recommend in light of where we're at, is let's see what Greg has to say. Let's see how the board feels about what Greg presents. And take that first step.
And if I could just speak to the part about the polling, with respect to the polling tends to be very generic. And they might call out very specific projects. But what we've seen with polling that's happened over the course of my career is they keep it very generic, and that's ultimately what ends up on the ballot. We might have some very specific, and this board might go, hey, these are the priorities that we want to make sure get completed. And that is what maybe the campaign would state, but the questions that we would be asking the ballot language would leave it generic and open for us to be able to do as much as humanly possible. And as I like to remind you, even if you guys were to give us $1 bazillion, there's never enough money to complete every project. So we just have to make sure we're okay.
And he wouldn't be able to do anything unless he were to come to the board first to present.
Do we need a motion to have you,
I don't think so.
or can we just say?
Just
we
give
want
you
to?
direction to decide.
I just put it on the agenda. but
Okay,
if you want
that
the
sounds
board and have a transparent conversation in a public meeting.
great.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Any other questions? Okay, we are on education services, first reading of recommended revisions from CSBA March 2024 updates for policies and regulations. We do have a community comment, but I'd like to take comments or questions from the board first. Debbie, do you have something?
I did go through, I had some about, does Chris have anything to share first?
Do you have anything to share?
Just that, you know, in the first read, a lot of the policies that we're bringing for you for the first read are boilerplate, CSBA, based on law, ed code, et cetera. There are some policies that that CSBA actually recommended we seek legal counsel and due to some of the sensitive nature of those policies, particularly related to areas that me and I oversee, we are going to be working with Lisa before bringing those before the board for a first read. There was no rush. We want to make sure they're vetted by legal counsel and sound before we bring them before the board for consideration for the first read.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do. There were a few, and it's a hefty load. I'll sort of walk through this. I only have a few that I'm gonna ask questions on. But just to give a little bit of overview from Alina. Quarterly, we get a list of all of the board policies that have had, that have recommended changes based on new laws. And so they all come to us. Some of them on this checklist did not come to us this time because they need further research. So let's see, and then we get some information about what's new in that policy, and then sometimes there's choices for how we're gonna handle it. So let's see, one that is actually on here, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, regarding the DEI committee and their flag discussion, is that board policy 6115, ceremonies and observances, is on this update. And so this is a first read, which means that at our next meeting, it could come back just to, to approve it. It would be on the consent calendar. So this would be the opportunity, if we wanted to make changes to this policy, to have that discussion. So I printed it out, and I have one recommendation. I looked into what the County Office of Education does, because they have put in their policy to fly the Pride Progress flag. And what they did was added into their policy, with that fear of, well, what are people gonna ask to fly? If we say that, how do we distinguish against something else? And what they decided to do was have language to allow any flag that we can approve, not that any flag could be flown, but that if it flies at the state capitol, then by resolution, our board could choose to do that. So that sort of limits the number. So I'd like to put that out there.
Well, so thank you for that point, and I want to just credit the DEI committee and specifically Sabine Wolpert for highlighting and acknowledging the legislation regarding the 7 flags that can be flown at the Capitol. So that's already legislation and law. So that was part of our discussion in terms of what the board could consider based on the existing policy. Now, I'd be happy to explore that, but because it's legislation, it's not necessary. And our policy does cover that and give the board that authority to consider those 7 flags.
Yes.
We also learned that there are exclusions of certain flags that can be flown, which alleviated a little bit of concern of maybe some, controversial group coming before the board and requesting to present a resolution under this policy. But I appreciate you acknowledging that, and we did all have a really good discussion around the current legislation, and we have a better understanding. Now, it sounds like maybe SCO just acknowledged the legislation in their policy to be a little bit more clear for those that aren't as up to speed on some of the current laws, so.
Sure,
If I can
and
hear
make
any
it
other
clear to the
comments.
public
Mhm.
that looks at our policy, what the parameters are.
I'd like to see the language from SCO.
I was even going to recommend that we reach out to CSBA. Part of the contract that we have with them is
Okay.
policy design. So, maybe they could provide us some language. I don't think we, as non-lawyers, should actually come up with the wording. But
I
what,
would vet it. I'd like to see SCOs as
So we
well.
have to see it.
Yeah.
That doesn't have to become legally binding.
Can I make a recommendation that we table this regulation 6115 and not vote on it right now until we get some more further clarification from the DEI on what their thoughts are?
And I
So that we don't have to do it twice?
Well, we're not voting on that tonight.
I know, but let's not vote on it next month either. Let's
take
wait.
this one off as a first reading.
Yes, I
Okay.
think so, yeah.
I'm good with that.
And the only law in here that was, and it might have been in the regulation, no, it's in the policy. The only reason that it came to us is, to acknowledge Workplace Readiness Week, the week that includes April 28th. So I think that if we can manage to do that somehow, even if it's not in our policy yet, so that we're compliant with the law, then I think we would be okay, not pushing it through prematurely before we're ready.
So we'll table BP 6115 and AR 6115. We want to have, cohesive.
Yeah,
AR and BP, they go together.
Yes.
And then I'll do a little bit of research. Sound good?
and then the other one that I wanted to, discuss was, 9320 meetings and notices. And I think this may actually just have been an oversight, but we should probably talk about it. It certainly can't come back on the consent agenda. There was a blank on it. So, and tonight is sort of an example that we at our December meeting set regular meetings to take place at certain locations, and we changed the location. We were going to meet at Annalee, and we changed it to here. This bylaw 9320, regular meetings, it tells you when and where the meetings will take place, and that was just left highlighted in blank. So we should discuss that, and before it comes back on consent, we should have some answers about that, and if we're gonna maybe even asking CSBA if we can
I think that
put some language about
we wanted
rotating.
to table, because didn't we table the exhibit below? 93232, actions by the board, those are for further review, but this was just meetings and notices. This one was not.
My recommendation would be that we don't list in here when our meetings are, because we do sometimes change them and it could very well confuse people. And we say see
Appendix. Yeah.
school calendar or board calendar.
Yeah, and that's how we've done it in the past, because we approve board
So
calendar.
I wouldn't fill this out in here.
That was the intent.
Yes, I wouldn't. And so I would say, let's strike that section and just put a section that says see appendix / board
I think
calendar.
that would be appropriate. I can make that edit and bring it back before the board, and you guys can approve it as a consent, as we talked about in the past.
Because like we did change this meeting location just for ease of equipment. And sometimes we have to change because there's something else happening. And that this says that's what we're supposed to do, then we're now violating our own policy. So I recommend we don't put that in here.
And I would like to actually get some guidance from CSBA on a recommendation for that. They may recommend pointing to the website.
It was optional, if I remember correctly, when I went through it, and you don't always have to list things.
Okay, yeah, I
so-
only have the guide sheet. I don't have the whole, I didn't print out the whole 400.
But I can go back and take another look if you'd like. And we're gonna revise our calendar for next year as well, and I thought that we did a good job of balancing the location, and we pivoted, obviously, because of the facility setup and having subsequent back-to-back board meetings, and it seemed like everybody was good with that, so.
Well, we need a little conversation because apparently Laguna has had some issues with not being able to use the space.
It wasn't that, it was just that we wouldn't have broke down this space, and I actually talked to Jeanette, and she was good with it.
Okay.
That was regarding the Eli meeting, if I remember correctly.
I will clarify, their use was not on the calendar, and I said, that's what I looked at first, so they've been I said, you have to put all your events on the calendar, so we know if there's a conflict, we would have been happy to accommodate them. Had we known.
And Greg hasn't seen an issue, but we can definitely make sure.
Yeah,
that
just double check with Greg and see if the teachers, if there's any concern with the teachers, that's all I'd like to know.
Absolutely.
Okay, and any other
Yeah,
comments?
just the third one, and this is one that is for further review, but it's on the agenda, so just for food for thought as you're doing your further review. I would like a little bit of clarification on this, the exhibit, 9323, 2, about actions requiring 2/3 vote, because we had the meeting when we had the regional parks lease. And my understanding was that there was a 2/3 vote required. And our existing policy, which is what I printed out here, does indicate that, actions requiring a 2/3 vote of the board, a 5-member board will need 4 board members, for a resolution, declaring the trustee's intention to sell or lease property. So I would just like to get some clarification from council on how that happened and how that was an exception to that.
Well, you're speaking of the parks agreement, and I believe it went back to the policy, but also educational code about the threshold of use of the campus. So your interpretation of the policy was respectfully, incorrect, and that was clarified with legal counsel. And that's one of the reasons why we want to take all of these policies that say further review needed before legal counsel to ensure that they're sound.
So I would just like to close the loop on that and because that is pretty clear to me. It doesn't talk about there being any sort of a amount of space. So I would just like a write-up or something about that. That would just be useful for me.
I think you already did that,
Yeah,
didn't you?
I did. I provided you with an in-depth explanation of the educational code and where the policy was interpreted if you're talking about the prior lease agreement, but I know that there are some questions that you will have when we bring forward the lease agreement regarding the makerspace collaboration with Dale Doherty. And I can already assure the board that we've been working closely with OHH, who are our experts with regard to lease agreements and facilities. And they see no issue with current policy, and obviously these policies as recommended by CSBA are boilerplate unless the district adds optional language to reflect practices. But with this type of a board policy and how, educational code and laws come into play, we will probably keep it as recommended by CSBA, so.
Do we need to clarify it any better in the policy so that these questions don't arise?
That's what we'll be working with
Okay,
Lisa.
that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah.
If I could also chime in here, I think it's important that we differentiate our board policy and our administrative regulation from sections of the ed code that allow us to do things that are maybe not consistent with our board policy. And I don't want to use the word consistent, completely allowable, but maybe just don't translate correctly. And I think that's where maybe the inconsistency was, because there were provisions within the education code that allowed us to go to, it's almost like following a yellow brick road or whatever. You have to go to subset C, read subset C.4, 4.4 applies to 6.2. It's just, you have to read all of them in the sequential chain. And when we did do that with the regional parks, it was clear if we followed those that we were not required to have the 2/3 majority for that particular instance because of the public entity.
So just as a little bit of a parallel with that, we're talking about, this is getting too into the weeds. I'll follow up with you.
Okay, great. Okay, David Carey.
Thank you, board, and as always, thank you for your service. I had two comments. One is about a very specific policy, the other one is kind of about a general comment about the process here. The specific policy is one you've already talked about, policy 6115, ceremonies and observations, or excuse me, observances. In past meetings recently, there's not the last sentence in that policy has been mentioned. I'll read it here. In addition, the board may, through adoption of a resolution, authorize the display of symbolic flags or banners in support of specific awareness months. And what I'd like to recommend is you consider expanding that policy to be including not just months, but days, weeks, or months. And one of the reasons for doing that is in the Ed Code, there are places where the state encourages local school districts to have awareness days for specific topics. And they can be topics in general. In some cases, they are about specific historical people. The three names that come to mind right now are Cesar Chavez, Ronald Reagan, and Harvey Milk. And Harvey Milk is somebody who's been mentioned recently in here. And so at least having the option of being able to display a banner or a flag for a specific awareness day is something that could be valuable for this district. And certainly it could be valuable for lots of other districts statewide. So I know this is the time to deal with the DEI and the flags, but to the extent that this is a policy that you've asked maybe for some suggestions about how to change it, or how it could be changed, either for us locally here or a longer term process of pursuing it as a statewide change, I want to recommend that. The other thing, kind of the general comment about process is your agenda lists, what I understand are the revised policies that are getting the first reading tonight. There's no indication of what is changing those policies for the general public to see. And I'd encourage you to look at ways to provide that information to the general public, just as a general matter of transparency. And because those are the basis, those policies form the basis for a lot of your decision making, it's something that deserves some additional transparency. And I'm not claiming it'll fill up all the seats if you do that, but hopefully it can help some. Thank you.
Can I give a comment to that?
Sure, yeah.
So, I know it's cumbersome, but there are documents attached to that item that CSBA provides, which show, all of the recommended changes, the existing language. In terms of, we've discussed, and just for the general public, we've had this conversation as a cabinet and a board, to replicate a track changes document would be extremely cumbersome. So what we've asked the Board of Trustees to do is really look closely at the attachments that CSBA provides, because then you can see what it is that's being recommended versus what's being presented. So thank you, David.
Chris, I'll just point out that this time they weren't attached. I had to go in through my CSBA account to the policies module and print them out myself. They're not attached this time. So I think they have been in the
That's my mistake.
Okay, anything else? All right, let's move on to consideration of approval of resolution number 13, April 2023-2024, designating May 15, 2024, West Sonoma County Union High School District Employee Appreciation Day. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second. Any information about that?
Yeah, I'm just getting out of policies and backing it out. So, this is a really, really cool thing to acknowledge all of our employees, and we landed on May 15th, and we've got some support for providing something special for our employees on that day. The Annalee Alumni Association has agreed to come out and barbecue. Some of us, the cabinet, me and I, whomever else is available that day will come down and help, and we'll be providing a lunch to all district employees on that Wednesday afternoon. At no expense to the district, obviously. So any other questions? Something fun to celebrate. We've got amazing employees all across the different levels and departments within our district, and we're just really proud of our staff. We want to acknowledge them.
I did have one question, Chris, that Loretta wanted me to ask. Do you have a roundabout final count? We need to know that.
I already gave her the number.
Did you give that?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
Okay, we need a roll call vote. Debbie?
Aye.
Jeannie?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Louis?
Aye.
And I. Okay, number 3, consideration of approval of process for selection of the Becky Hopper Award. I just wanted to kind of jump in here because I do not feel at all comfortable with an open process of who we discuss in open session of who will get this award. It feels disrespectful and uncomfortable to me and just kind of in bad taste. So I would actually like to table this award for this year and develop a process that is more respectful personally.
And I would just like to, as I learned about this award, it's been a surprise. And I think that's part of what's been a challenge. And there are obviously some different viewpoints on this within the Board of Trustees. So I think it's important that we do have a process, because I think that, the nominations this year, the way that the process was handled last year, it just wasn't consistent, and it surprised many, many people who have valued the integrity of this award and how the board had really almost informally, worked to take nominations from the administration or nominate people themselves. And it was just brought before the public in an open session meeting in May, and it was a surprise to the recipient. So
Are you gonna make a motion on that, Julie?
I would just like to make a motion that we table this award for this year and develop an appropriate process.
I'm gonna second that.
Any questions or concerns?
I would like to agree with you. I can't imagine, I know last year was very uncomfortable. We had 3 candidates, and for us to sit here in public and discuss of those 3 people, who is better than the other and who is maybe more worthy than the other to get this award, was ugly. And I think we've gotta come up with a better idea, or we don't give the award, because I think it's not in good taste at all for us to sit here and have a discussion about our employees or even other people, because we've given it to community members, but to talk about people like that in public, it's just not a good taste. So I totally concur that we need to look at it in a different light.
So, Chris, have you reached out to council to learn about the Brown Act constraints around something such as this?
No, I haven't, because in the past, it didn't violate the Brown Act, because the board just accepted the process that had been put in place, and there were 1 or no more than 2 trustees that work with district administration, maybe set aside their own, views on things, and it was really just kind of an organic process. So it didn't take board deliberation. I think the intent of it was to surprise somebody who had demonstrated, outstanding public service. So to that point, I have not. However, should the board give me some direction to look into that, to formalize the process, I'd be happy to do so. But it was, Debbie, uncomfortable. And so we need a process.
I think that would be a useful place to start, because I think that the concept of a elected body, a portion of an elected body giving an award to somebody without being able to vote on it, or I think there's some Brown Act considerations, and I think that council could maybe help them come up with a solution. I don't know if we really could come up with as good of a solution as legal counsel could recommend.
Well, what we did was we voted on,
Process in the way that it was in the past, right?
well, we did vote on the two people that would.
We didn't vote on the two people. The two people just volunteered
Oh, they
themselves.
volunteered.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
It was agreed upon, from the very beginning in 1997, it was agreed upon by the board. And over the years, no one board has ever disagreed with the formality of having two board members basically make that decision. And it was never the same two board members every year. They took all input and then talked about those two people would get together and have a discussion about, all of the people's names who've been thrown in the hat and the pros and cons. And then a name would usually rise to the top. And unfortunately, you didn't like that last year. So we ended up giving it to all three people, which is not, it is not in and of itself.
It loses some
Oh,
of the power.
Absolutely, it loses the specialness of the whole
I
thing.
agree.
And so it took me by surprise that you were so opposed to it. I think it took, other folks completely by surprise too. And we just, so I think we need to, spend some more time at another board meeting, having a discussion about, how we move forward with this, or if we do. And maybe we don't do that, and maybe we find another way to honor people, like we did last month with the FFA group. That was fantastic. And what I loved is we honored so many people, and they just felt so good about it. And so maybe that's something else that we decide we want to do, is we honor people in a different way. And not just single one person out.
So two points, I just don't want to lose them. One, it's not that I didn't like the process. I saw that it wasn't Brown Act compliant, and I can't.
That's your opinion.
It was though, because it was informal, and then we came before the open public meeting and just announced who won the award. It then became a board consideration when there were nominations made in public and deliberation. So I also don't know that this is worth spending the legal fees to seek legal counsel. I mean, mind you, our attorneys charge us by the 6 minutes, and they're not cheap.
Well, the CSBA plan, I don't think we've used up all of our free minutes with them yet, so.
But again, that takes a lot of time and bandwidth of members of the cabinet with all the other things that we have on our plates. And I've got direction to look at a number of policies that actually are regarding how we run and govern the district. This is a feel good.
Okay, anybody else have any? Oh, sorry.
Well, the second thing I was going to say, it is awkward. The Brown Act makes things awkward. It makes things awkward that we can't go back and forth with people. That, this is a meeting in public of the board. It's not a public meeting. There's a lot of things that are awkward about it. And I know, when I was a new trustee, it was very hard to do these things. And when you interview appointees, it's public, and you have to have these conversations about which trustee you're going to appoint if you have a vacancy. And it is kind of awkward. I get that. But I think it's something that as public officials, we have to learn how to do. And I don't know, Julie, if you were ever at any of the meetings at Sebastopol Union when we were selecting volunteer of the year, which they do every year, and there would be several names. And we would have a conversation about it, and, you know, we wouldn't say this person's better, they're good, they're bad. But we would talk about, we would set very clear, you know, these are the qualities for this award. So there would sort of be certain benchmarks, and then we would have a conversation, and it would be a little bit awkward. But we would do it because, and it's an example too, to the public for how public meetings operate. So, I think it would be an interesting, lesson.
I for one would never participate in such a thing, absolutely not. It is, so it would be embarrassing and no, I could not be a part of anything like that.
I gotta say, I'd have a hard time with that too, and I don't remember those meetings, but it's not something I would wanna do, it feels very uncomfortable to me. So, anyway, I had made a motion to table it and discuss a process. I'm not sure there's a process available. Do we want to even continue to give this award? I mean, how does everybody feel about it?
Well, you made a motion to table it and to look at it in the future, so I think we need to
We should
vote on that and then move on.
Did somebody second?
I did.
Okay. Any other comments or?
If we're tabling, because I'm hearing that Chris says that he doesn't have the staff time to bring back the information that we need to talk about this again. So are we directing him to bring back some options for us? What, I don't understand if we're tabling.
I don't believe this is Chris's call at all. This isn't have anything to do with Chris.
No, it's our call, but we do need to hear what kind of staff time.
No, this is a board award that has nothing to do with Chris or the administration at all.
I think I would like to amend my motion that we stop giving the award, honestly.
I will go ahead and amend my second then.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Okay, let's see, I guess we can just vote. Can we a roll call vote for that?
No.
All those in favor?
Can you explain what the award is? Alina has a
I'm
question.
sorry, that's my.
That's okay.
That's
No, what's your question? Go ahead.
Yes, who is the award for? Just clarifying again.
What is the Becky Hopper Award?
Oh, what is it? Actually, Jeannie is better suited to explain that.
Hi, in 1994 about, we had a trustee named Becky Hopper. And she just was the epitome of what board members, what at least a group of board trustees in 1997 thought was the epitome of a board member. And they decided that they wanted to set up this perpetual award in honor of Becky. And it goes to someone who is kind of goes above and beyond and is just an outstanding either community member, teacher, administrator, you know, somebody within our community, within our district. We've given it to groups of students. We've given it to groups of people who ran parcel taxes. I mean, it's been given to a real variety of people, but people have kind of done amazing, outstanding things that have really helped our district. And it used to be that 2 trustees, because you can't have a group of 3 because then we violate the Brown Act. So it was, 2 trustees would volunteer their time to come up with names and get input from the, you know, from either from anyone.
Right.
As to who they might like to think would be a good person for this award. And then those 2 people would ultimately make that decision for the board. And then we would give that award. And it would be a surprise at the May board meeting. And they get a plaque and then their name goes on a perpetual plaque that's in the district office.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely honor people still. We're not voting to not honor anyone. We're just voting to not honor them in this way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You're welcome. Okay, all those in favor?
Oh, no. No,
All those opposed?
no.
Abstentions. Like. All right. Business services, consideration of approval to file with the California Department of Education Form J13 request for allowance of attendance due to emergency conditions for the West Sonoma County Consortium. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And
Laura?
Chris, are you gonna talk about this? Who's talking about? He is gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
No, Andrew. Andrew's gonna talk about it.
All right, with the emergency closure days, that happened at West, or for the district. We had the 2 closure days on February 5th and then 1 again on February 20th. The consortium at Twin Hills, that classroom, due to their continued power outages, due to the weather during that time, was closed again on February 6th. We need to file the J13A form with the California Department of Education to waive the minimum requirements for instructional days and instructional minutes. Typically, the California Department of Education has been approving those due to weather. Should they not approve it, then you would have to find a way to make up those days, typically in minutes, typically over a 2-year period. I don't foresee CDE, California Department of Education, not approving it. So with submitting this form, then it will allow us to meet a low -1 day of instructional minutes and -1 instructional day for 179 days for that West County Consortium classroom housed at Twin Hills. And we need to do that as we are the LEA for local education agency for the consortium.
Any questions? Yeah.
Am I right, Andrew? It was due to the fact that they didn't have power.
Twin Hills didn't have power.
So
with February
it really is beyond our control.
Yeah.
And beyond their control.
Right.
So you suspect that this will be.
That'll be approved. We do have the other 2 makeup days that are already built into the calendar that they will be making up. Monday and then 1 in a couple more weeks.
Can you put that into that report?
Yes, yeah. Oh, this report is meticulously put together by Paula Dillon, that she got that 32-page document going. Without her, I wouldn't have been able to have done that. So,
Right, great.
you know, thanks.
Yeah, because I know that was really tough because there really wasn't any control.
Yeah.
They didn't have any power.
So with your approval, we'll have the signature page for you all to sign.
Anything else? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consideration of approval of monthly personnel report. Can I have a motion? And a second?
Second.
Okay. Mia,
Okay, I do have some additions. We did receive a letter of resignation from Amber Muntz, who is one of our special ed teachers with the consortium. And I did receive today a resignation from one of our bilingual paraeducators, Martha Gonzalez, but I do want to tell the board that she is going to be returning to the district next year as an intern school counselor. So maybe we'll be able to hire her one of these days as a school counselor. And then we received a letter of resignation from Grace Kirk. She's one of our behavioral assistants with the consortium. And she just got accepted into the speech and language master's program. So we're really proud of these 2 employees of ours. So hopefully we'll be able to rehire them these days in a certificated position. And then the last piece that I do want to tell you is the consortium board. We just held interviews last week. We're in the final stages of the onboarding process for their director, and the chair of the consortium board asked if I would announce her name. We are going to be signing her employment contract within the next few days, and I'll be bringing that contract before the board at the May board meeting, but her name is Sarah Zills, and she'll be starting on July 1st. So, but I'll bring her employment contract in May.
any questions for Mia? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consideration of approval of declaration of need for fully qualified educators. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And second,
I'll second.
Mia,
Okay, so this is an annual item that I bring before you that has to be filed with the state in the event that we need to file for any emergency permits or limited assignments, and it has to be filed with the state prior to asking for an emergency permit. So I typically ask for the board to approve this time of the year, so it's taken care of well in advance of the coming school year.
any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
And consideration of approval of memorandum of understanding between West Sonoma County Union High School District and WSCTA regarding the 186 workday calendar for teachers on special assignment. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
And I'll second.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mia.
So we entered into an MOU with the teachers. And this is in regards to our teachers on special assignments. As you know, they don't have a regular assignment with students in the classroom. And it works in the best interest of the administration and the teacher on a special assignment to have the ability to flex their 186 days. So perhaps that the teacher and the administrator would like to have them start maybe 3 days before the teachers actually start their work year and maybe stay 3 days after the school year starts. So we entered into this agreement so they could do that for this school year and for the coming school year. So this is a 2-year MOU.
Who keeps track of that?
The teachers on special assignment, they'll actually create a calendar for the day that they're going to be working. And the teachers on special assignment will work with their principal on those days, and then we'll keep track of it in our escape payroll system, and it will also be put into the frontline system, the absence reporting system. So we have a record of it.
Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and Debbie wanted to talk about board meeting day.
Yeah, I'm just curious if you want to just give a little overview that you've requested that there be a meeting on the 24th and what that's about, and then I can go into my questions.
Yeah, we're gonna hold a special board meeting, and we wanted to be sure that we had at least a quorum. I think Jenny would be able to speak to the need for the special and why the 2-3 week head off really helps to keep projects on time, specifically the HVAC project. Go ahead, Jenny.
I understand that we don't want to use special or emergency board meetings unless we absolutely have to. And unfortunately, the board calendar doesn't always align with how we bid projects because I have to follow public contract code, building code, all those things. And so there's certain advertising requirements and benchmarks that I have to meet before we can award. And oftentimes those line up the day before a board item is due. And it's really hard to turn around a board item in a day. So I approached Chris and said, hey, we have 2 really big board items that we're presenting. I need more time, especially because these are ones that we've got legal. Is it a possibility to have a special board meeting? And here are the reasons. It's for the award of the guaranteed maximum price for the HVAC project. I recognize it's only a few weeks from the special to the award, but what happens behind the scenes is there's 2 weeks worth of contracts and processes that I have to happen. So that 2 weeks turns into 4 weeks, which turns into 6 weeks. And that 6-week lead time is huge to us getting that equipment in hand. At the same time, we're also looking to onboard our contractor for the lease back contractor for the new CTE facility. We're 30% of the way through construction documents. Now would be a perfect opportunity for us to bring that person on board so that they can spend their 200+ hours doing their constructability review of the documents prior to us finalizing those construction. I know I keep saying construction documents over and over. That is what it is. And so that we can incorporate any of those changes into the DSA set prior to submitting to DSA. And our goal is still to come to you to that board meeting in June. It's more just getting ahead of these, even suggested to Chris, like my bidding year or my bidding month is really April. I know that HR has 2 meetings in March. I know business has 2 meetings in June, and maybe in the future we consider maintenance and facilities having 2 meetings in April, just for my little shout out there. So I'm happy to answer, and hopefully that clarifies for you.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really very helpful, and I absolutely understand and am in agreement with the need because of timing to have another meeting. And I guess two concerns that I have. One, that the meeting's going to be held midday. There's already, a lot of public scrutiny and, statewide scrutiny over lease back and transparency. And now we're talking about considering going out for another bond. And I just feel like having a special meeting in the middle of the day that, the public can't participate in, that gives me a little bit of pause. And so, I wonder if we could do it in the evening, like our regular meetings. And then the second concern is that, legally for a special meeting, the board packet needs to be distributed 24 hours before. And that is because a special meeting is often urgent, unknown, and we need to do that. But we're adding, it's not a regular meeting, so it's a special meeting. But these are big, hefty items. If I receive, midweek on Tuesday for a Wednesday meeting, all of these materials, that's a lot to do. So and it sounds like you're just looking to do this to have another meeting. So what I would ask is if we could have the agenda out on Friday like usual for the Wednesday meeting.
That would be if Jenny would have time to prepare, and we'd be happy to.
I always have time to repair the board items. It's legal that is usually holding us up, not because they don't want to help it, they're just fitting it into their schedule. They know pretty well in advance. While we were in this meeting, I just got the GMP from the contractor at 7:07. I forwarded it immediately over to legal. They start preparing the contract. The contract, if you guys spend the whole night reading it, I will be shocked. I've read it once and that's it. Otherwise, it's a very, very technical document vetted through legal. I'm not saying don't read it, I'm saying it's a lot. But I would fully be prepared to have it posted in advance of the 24 hours. And I would just want to vet that with them. Also, just to touch on your points regarding lease back, at the March board meeting, you did award that contract to Wright Contracting, and I believe there was a total of 1 minute of board conversation about it. I feel that I, along with legal, have tried to answer and head off at the pass questions regarding the lease back process, as well as inform this board as to why it is a good option when we're dealing with complicated projects. There are plenty of projects that we do design, bid, build, and I completely respect where you're coming from. We want to be transparent with our community, especially with our bond dollars. And we have talked about these projects, or I have talked about these projects at Julie's request. I always enjoy these meetings where we talk about all of the bond activity that's happening. And I feel that's just another opportunity for us to be transparent. So I appreciate you guys considering the meeting. I will let you know that Phil is unavailable in the evening. That whole week, it just pushes us out to the 30th, and at that point, we said might as well just go to the 8th. So the option of the daytime was really because we wanted legal counsel to be present to answer any specific questions. However, if there are none, potentially any, I'm available that evening.
Yeah, I think, the other piece is, these aren't things that the board hasn't been aware of, right? B, we have agenda setting at 3:00. Jenny noted the availability of legal counsel, and just looking at some of our past board meetings, we know that there have been some questions, and it's been the comfort level of the board to be able to ask those directly of counsel from OHH. So, I totally respect and understand where you're coming from, Debbie, and we haven't proposed many special meetings in my 2 years here now, I think one. And so, just with respect for our staff and the projects that we hope to have completed and our students by the time we come back from school, we really want to make sure we have a cool made building. So yeah, I actually have changed the meeting invite we discussed today. The fact that we do have folks that work full-time jobs and we know we're not gonna need 4 hours, that was initially just a hold to see who would be available. Being that we have agenda setting at 3, we believe we can get through the meeting in an hour or less. And I do think that Jenny, and if there aren't going to be any specific questions of legal counsel, we could consider moving it into the evening if we wanted to have the availability to the public, but we were really being considerate of the board's interest to perhaps ask specific questions of members of OHH. So there's a lot of.
It's really important to have him available because we do usually, and I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of the time we do have questions for Phil. And I would hate for us to set a meeting in the evening, Phil's not available, we have questions, and then can't get them answered.
I just wanted to make sure, Debbie, you understood, like we thought about a lot of this. There's a lot of integrity and thoughtfulness and why we wanted to move this along and give Jenny a little bit more lead time to make sure these projects are completed.
I just really want air conditioning.
The other thing I would like to state is that this is none of this is a surprise also to the public. Because we have been talking about these projects for a very long time. So it's not like this is just all of a sudden coming out of thin air. I hear what you're saying, Debbie. Yes, we'd like people to be able to be here if they want to be here. I would hope that if somebody, wants to listen in, that they could take a few minutes and do that. Maybe they can't, I don't know. But like I said, I think we've been very transparent with all of this, and it's not like we've got anything to hide. We're just trying to make sure we can have our legal counsel available. I think that's really important.
And you all have my commitment that if it were things that have already been daylighted time and time again, I wouldn't have even proposed the special, so.
And we will be hosting it on Zoom per normal. I just think that we will be having it at the district office instead. So we will have the normal setup. So if people want to attend remotely, we will, because Phil will be attending it remotely. The reason he's unavailable is I guess he has other board meetings to attend than just ours.
Sure.
But we're the coolest.
We're starting at 2 then?
2:00.
And it's in the district office.
Correct.
Your
Conference room, yeah, and Jenny will zoom in from there.
Okay, great, thank you. Makes total sense.
And then if you can, as best as possible, get the materials posted more than the 24 hours that.
If I can exceed it, I will do my darndest. I will revise my email to legal and tell them it shouldn't be that difficult. We have the information now. It's just more, we were waiting for the guaranteed maximum price from Wright, and we have that as of right now.
And I think what that really does is it demonstrates that we're trying to be transparent, that there isn't some secret meeting that's being noticed 24 hours in advance that has all of this fun stuff. So I think just by making it available is just, I think it's just a nice practice, even though it's not required.
Agreed.
Anything else? Yes.
Sorry, pardon me, and again, pardon my ignorance for this role, it's my first time. We're, obviously, we don't have a lot of attendance here today, but for those on Zoom that may have a public comment, if we do public comment,
So
would there any takers?
I'm gonna schedule a time so you and I can sit down and get to know one another, yeah. It's something that Karis and I had a chance to do. So the way that we do public comment for folks on Zoom, it's all laid out on the topic of the agenda,
Okay.
is we don't take public comments, they've got to submit them to Karen, whether it be regarding items in closed session, items on the agenda, or items not on the agenda. Then we compile those, send them out to the board, and then they'd be read in public to reflect the comments that came in from folks that would be attending via Zoom.
I understand.
There's just too many issues, there has been with issues, and we've been lucky, we haven't been involved, but too many public meetings have been, so we just don't take any public comment on Zoom anymore.
Thank you.
I'll shoot you an email, we'll take some time to get ready for next year, okay?
Thank you.
Happy to have you.
Our meeting is adjourned.